Start with a dream and share it with some friends. The idea deepens and grows. The dream takes shape, it has form and substance. A community soon arose. A listening room, the hearing room, a place to find a home to play. A listening room, the hearing room. Express yourself and have your say. The walls are thin and sirens blare. The tables sit near folding chairs. The stage is set with paint and glue, and love went into every screw. The light shine bright on every star. They come to play from near and far. The light shine bright on every star. They come to play from near and far. A listening room, the hearing room, a place to find a home to play. A listening room, the hearing room. Express yourself and have your say. Hearing room, a listening room. You're welcome here, so have no fear. The hearing room, the hearing room. Come in, my friend, where art can bloom.
And that's the Hearing Room song, which we start with every week here on the Woodshed podcast. I'm Aaron Tornberg, and I'm here today with a very exciting guest. He's a friend of mine. His name is Snake. And if that doesn't intrigue you, I don't know what will. Snake has been around in the music business for quite a while, and we're going to get talking to him. But first, I wanted to tell you what's going on at the Hearing Room this week. As usual, I'll just remind you that we have open mic on Tuesday night. We have Let's Have Words, which is a spoken word evening, and it's open, so anybody can come read their poetry or whatever. Thursday, we have Singin' Jam. The Singin' Jam is extremely popular, and if you haven't been, it's quite an experience, so you should definitely check that out. And then we have our third Friday's Bluegrass Jam. I love the Bluegrass Jam. It's a lot of fun. There's lots of people, lots of banjos. If you don't like banjos, don't go. But other than that, there's great bluegrass, banjos, mandolins, and plenty of guitars as well. So come on by and try to learn some traditional music, traditional bluegrass, that is. And then we have a special event on Saturday. It's the House Thespians. So there's going to be a play reading here, which is unique to the Hearing Room. We haven't done that very much. We've done it a couple times. And then next Sunday, we have Neil Dale, who is going to be at the open mic as the feature. That will be 2 to 5. And, of course, before that, we have 12:30 to 1:30. We have the Drum Circle, and 5 through 8, we have American Songbook. So that's a rundown on what's coming up this week. And as usual, I want to mention our good friends at University Music in Lowell. They're a great little store. They have tons of stuff there. You walk in there, it's like another world. And they have in the basement an amazing setup for lessons. So if you're looking for guitar lessons or anything like that, check out University Music. Also, they have instrument sales, repairs, sheet music all over the place. And you can buy a guitar too. So whatever you want to do for music, it's there. You should check out their website, universitymusiclowell.com, and it's owned by Marlene and Brian Buckley. So go and say hi to Marlene if you go in. And that's about it for that. So let's get to talking with Snake. So, Snake, we met a couple years ago, and at first you kind of came in and you were, this guy who had emailed me, and I didn't recognize you because I'd never met you before. And you kind of came in subtly, and then I looked you up, and you had a lot of cool stuff in your background that I had no idea about when we first met. So you were in this band I heard of called Orpheus, and that was in what years?
Well, we formed the group in 1967 for the specific purpose of getting a recording contract, which we actually got 9 contract offers, never having played a gig. Made our first album at the end of 1967, released in 68, the beginning of 68, along with a single, Can't Find the Time. That reached the Bubbling Under charts that year. The following year, it was reissued by MGM, and it hit the Hot 100 then. If everything had been normal, like all at once, the record would have gotten a lot higher on the charts. It was part of a thing called the Boston Sound. That was a marketing creation, because there was no such thing, really. It was a marketing idea run amok, as our producer Alan Lorber said. MGM came out with this idea that we should promote it as as the next thing to the West Coast. The problem was that the various groups from Boston, and there were a lot of very good ones, didn't have a unified sound. As you could identify the West Coast sound or the Detroit sound or the Nashville or the Memphis sounds, you couldn't identify Boston.
Right.
Unless you went back farther and talked about the folk scene. Because the folk scene was very popular in Boston, and that was, one of the hotbeds of it. But this was after that.
Right. So what years did you say?
We were active in 1968 and 1969. The group fragmented at the end of 1969, and we all went our separate ways. One of the guys, Bruce Arnold, joined up with another band from Worcester, which was headed up by one of my current musical partners, Stephen Martin, and they formed a second incarnation of Orpheus and did one album and one single in 1971.
Okay. And the single, I think you just recorded that, you said, right?
Yeah. I've been working on this album forever. I keep getting distracted by producing someone else's album or
Right.
live performances or whatever. I play it somewhere every single day.
Right, that's pretty amazing. Everybody sees you posting on Facebook that you're everywhere all the time. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'm headed from here. I'm headed down to West Dennis on the Cape.
Wow. Yeah, I noticed that. I say, Stink, let's get together. You're like, oh, well, I'll be driving an hour there, and I'll drive another 2 hours after for a gig, and that's must be a nice life to live in your retirement. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's great.
yeah, I'm a little jealous. Time is difficult to find, which is an interesting segue into the song you're about to do.
Yeah, I can do that. This was written by Bruce Arnold. I've changed it around a bit because part of the lyric didn't really make much sense unless you knew the backstory. If you knew the backstory, it did, but most people didn't. And there's no sense in getting into that. Can't find the time to tell you. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Can't find the time to tell you. So many things to say, couldn't fit him in a book of 1,000 pages. So many people say I couldn't tell a lie in 1,000 ages. Maybe they're wrong. Maybe they're wrong. Ba-da-da-da-da. Can't find the time to tell you. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Can't find the time to tell you. I look at your pretty face and fall in love every time I see you. Your nightgown of regal lace flowing to the ground in a mist around you. Baby, we're on. Baby, we're on. Baby, we're on. Baby, we're on. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Can't find the time to tell you. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Can't find the time to tell you. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. 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 Thank you. I don't do that very often, actually. When I started really going around playing, I didn't want to hang my hat on what I was 50 years ago.
Right.
I wanted to earn my chops for what I do today, and I've been able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I didn't even know when I met you that was part of your history. Although it is interesting.
Yeah, I actually made my first commercial recordings in 1963.
Oh yeah, who was that with?
I was in a folk trio out of Worcester. We had various and sundry names. We performed under the name of the Wanderers, but there was another group, national group, by that name. So we cut an album for Strand Records, and we had to come up with another name. So for that purpose, we went under the name of the Minutemen. And when John Kennedy was shot, I had left the folk group and was in a rock trio called the Blue Echoes, which was extremely popular in central New England. And we had put out a single on our own label, which had gotten picked up by Swan Records out of Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
And when John Kennedy got shot, my partner from the Echoes and I pulled together the old folk group, and we did a Kennedy tribute song recording, which was released on Swan. And it didn't do anything because, everything was, all they played then was patriotic music and hymns for a period of over a month. So any of the Kennedy records kind of died. But interestingly enough, the Swan catalog got bought out by an English outfit called Roller Coaster Records a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they placed the song in a movie called Moonwalkers a couple of years ago. It starred Ron Perlman, who was Hellboy, among other things.
Yes, he was.
And Rupert Grint, who played Ron Weasley in the Harry Potter movies. And, you know, a cast like that, you figure, well, you know.
What's the name of it?
Called Moonwalkers.
I'll have to check Netflix.
It is the worst movie I've ever seen in my life.
Okay.
It is awful. And, of course, the song doesn't come out until the end of the movie. So I had to watch the whole thing in order to hear it.
Was it the credits or before the credits?
No, it was before it. But, it was awful.
Okay.
The New York Times reviewer said it was the least funny comedy ever made.
Wow. That's high praise.
Yeah, right. I had to buy the DVD, you know, just to have it for my collection. And we got paid, so, I mean, you know, there is that.
Right. Well, that's important. That's a big part of the music industry, right? So you did that, and then you were you playing with any other bands after that?
Yeah. When the Blue Echoes broke up, because people started, you know, relocating and so on, I had a couple of pickup bands.
Right.
But one of the guys who was in that folk trio, Jack McInnes, had teamed up with a guy named Bruce Arnold. Both of them were from Worcester.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd formed a folk duo called the Villagers, which, again, was extremely popular. They were voted best folk duo by Broadside Magazine 2 years in a row.
Right.
They were very, very popular. And through one of Jack's college roommates, they met a guy named Peter Leeds. Peter Leeds' claim to fame, if you remember the Stan Freberg records, I don't know if you remember them.
I do know a little bit, yeah.
There was one called, where he did a parody of Deo.
Oh, good.
And there was a beatnik bongo player, you know. Don't dig spiders, you know. And that was Peter Leeds. He produced a group called Every Mother's Son, which, you know, some people liked. They had some hits.
Okay.
But he was interested in the group, but told Jack and Bruce they needed to add drums and bass. So Jack called me up, because I played bass as well as guitar.
Right.
And I went over, and the three of us clicked. And we then went through several different drummers before we finally settled with Harry Sandler. And we went down to New York for an audition with a producer named Wes Farrell. Wes Farrell was a heavy hitter. He produced, among other things, the Beacon Street Union and the Cowsills and the Brooklyn Bridge and a whole bunch of others.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had an audition with him, and he said he heard what we had, said, well, you need a few more songs, and if you come up with them, I want to record you. Well, that was good. On the way home, we decided we'd better come up with a name, and through a rather convoluted process, I suggested Orpheus, because Orpheus brought music to mankind.
Okay.
And so we thought that was kind of cool. And we adopted that as our name. Then the word got around to, in Boston, that we'd had this contract offer. Now, Harry had been in a band called the Mods, which played the surf ballrooms all the time. There were three of them. One was in Hyannis, one was in Salisbury Beach, and one was at Nantasket. The general manager of these things was a guy named Brian Interland. And he said, don't put all your eggs in one basket. He said, make yourselves a tape and take it and shop it around in New York. I'll set you up with people. So we made a tape at the Emerson School in Boston through one of Jack's friends, a dentist named Bill Wolk, recorded it. And we went down to New York, armed with all these names that Brian Interland had given us.
Right.
What he didn't tell us was these are just names. We thought he had, greased the wheels before we got there, but he hadn't. He hadn't told them anything. But that was all right. We knocked on doors, so it was basically cold calls. But out of 9 doors that we knocked on, we got 7 contract offers.
Oh, well, that's helpful.
Yeah, so that was pretty good. And then while we were trying to figure out which one we were going to go with, Alan Lorber showed up in Boston producing a group which ultimately was called Ultimate Spinach. It started off as the Underground Cinema. And he was the one who had the idea for the Boston sound because he said, big college town, so on, lots of bands.
Right.
Not knowing that MGM was going to go batty with it. And he was in Boston to hear some Spinach's stuff, and we got an interview with him in a warehouse someplace. And he also made us a contract offer. So there we were with 9 contract offers, never having played a gig, which was, kind of interesting.
That is. You never played, and yet here you are recording for a label.
Yeah, the only things we had done is some intermission sets at the various surfs. We'd go in when the house band was taking a break, and we'd borrow their equipment and just do half a dozen songs.
Right.
That's all we'd done. So here we were. We decided on Alan Lorber because he had a lot of cachet, a lot of credits. He had produced a whole raft of people, including Clyde McPhatter and Gene Pitney and Connie Francis, a whole raft of them. Mm-hmm. Was a major orchestrator. He was an orchestrator, the staff orchestrator for the Brill Building, which was a big hub of musical activity in New York. Mm-hmm. So he had a lot of cachet, as I say, as particularly with his orchestration skills, because Bruce and I decided we would really like to have some orchestration. Not expecting Alan, to go totally berserk with the orchestration, which he did on the first album. But anyway, we signed with him, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah, so I think it's time for a song. What do you think you would like to play now from that era, maybe?
From that era?
Could be anything. Could be a cover, could be...
Well, I only really do covers. I don't write much because for me, writing is like pulling teeth without Novocaine.
Okay.
I collaborate once in a while, and that works all right. But the last song I wrote by myself took me 40 years before I was happy with it. It did get released, nationally and so on, but...
What was it?
It was called A Little Game. It was done by Barbara St. Pierre and the Bird Sessions.
Can you still play it? Or no?
I haven't played it in a long time. I don't think I can play that one.
All right, we'll save it for the next podcast.
Yeah. It's a light bossa nova thing. Good lyrics, but it took me 40 years to make those lyrics of the way that I really wanted them. And the problem I have with taking this time and wrestling with tweaking songs and so on, and polishing them and getting them to where I'm happy with them. By the time I'm happy with it, I hate it. I've heard it too much.
Right.
I like to find songs that speak to me. Mm-hmm. where I can adjust it maybe and make it my own, but that have a message that, as I say, speaks to me. I don't feel that it's me doing the performing. I think I'm channeling the universe. The songs have a life of their own. They're out there, you know. And, I just love finding these songs, and whether they're by national artists or by local folks. I play a lot of local guys.
You know, that's an interesting point you make, because I know that there's a fascinating book called The Holy and the Broken, which is about Leonard Cohen's song, The Hallelujah, which wasn't released. Sony didn't want to release it, and he was signed with them at the time. And then, so instead of releasing the album, he held on to it, and then eventually they released it. But Jeff Buckley found the song when they released it to no acclaim. And when he found it, Leonard Cohen handed him 180 verses and said, pick.
Really?
So, yeah, but it took, like, he had all this stuff in his head, and he's the author of the song, and yet it took Jeff Buckley before it became a much bigger deal. And that's history, too. Now everybody knows the song.
Oh, yeah. Leonard Cohen's great. Was great. Shame that he passed.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, if you want me to play something, I'll play one that is by Tom Paxton. It's a little earlier than that. It's from 1964.
Okay.
And I have changed it actually quite a bit. I changed the tempo, I changed the lyric line, I changed the melody line, and I changed the chord progression.
Okay. But you didn't write it.
But I didn't write it. Some people say that it's the best version of the song that anybody ever did. A friend of mine opened for Tom Paxton and told Tom Paxton, I heard a version of your song that's better than you.
Yeah, did Tom agree?
Well, Tom didn't hear it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, you know.
Well, you can still send it to him.
Yeah, I could. Anyway, it's about a relationship that didn't work. It's a lesson too late for the learning, made of sand, made of sand. In the wink of an eye, my soul is turning. In your hand, in your hand. Are you going away with no word of farewell? Will there be not a trace left behind? I could have loved you better, didn't mean to be unkind. That was the last thing on my mind. You've got a reason aplenty for going. This I know, this I know. for the weeds have been steadily growing. Please don't go. Please don't go. Are you going away with no word of farewell? Will there be not a trace left behind? I could have loved you better. Didn't mean to be unkind. That was the last thing on my mind. As I lie in my bed in the morning without you, without you. Every song in my breast dies a-bornin' without you, without you. Are you going away with no word of farewell? Will there be not a trace left behind? I should have loved you better. Didn't mean to be unkind. That was the last thing on my mind. That was the last thing on my mind.
Oh, that was a good version. That's great. So, what happened after you were with Orpheus? Like, what happened at the end? I mean, you lasted a couple years, but
yeah, it didn't end well. Three of us kept in touch, Harry, Jack, and I.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually, with a few other folks, Stephen Martin, who was in part of the second Orpheus and had written several songs for the first group, including Congress Alley. He started the Congress Alley hippie community in Worcester, actually.
Okay.
Jack, Harry, and I, and Stephen, along with a couple of local Boston musicians, Bob Dunlap and Kathy Taylor, formed a group in 2004 called Orpheus Reborn, and we ran for about 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
6-part harmonies and stuff, so that was a fun project. But after Orpheus, I didn't play for years.
Mm.
I took a straight job with a company in Marlborough that made mine lighting equipment, particularly the cap lamps that miners wear.
Okay.
And I was there for almost 30 years, spent about half of that period in engineering, ended up having 17 patents and getting 2 master's degrees, which was a kind of a good thing.
In what field?
In business.
Mm-hmm.
Business and marketing. And then I decided I was really tired of engineering and I wanted to do something else, so I moved over to marketing. And did marketing for them for 15 years, all over the world, crawled around in mines from Argentina to Zimbabwe.
Wow.
It was a fascinating job. Loved it.
Yeah.
But we got bought out by a conglomerate, and the conglomerate and I didn't get along at all. I'd end up on the carpet for protesting practices like dumping defective product overseas and say, well, they're not going to sue us from Colombia.
Right.
For having them tell me, figure out how not to honor this warranty, figure out how not to pay this commission. That's not the way I operate,
Right.
So we came to a parting of the ways. Then I reinvented myself and became a high-tech market research analyst.
Mm-hmm.
And did that for 15 years till I was 73, and then decided I'd had enough.
So you had your own firm, or?
No, I worked for a company in Natick called Venture Development Corporation.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also an interesting time.
Yeah.
I missed the travel. I got to do some, but not a lot. But I'd started playing music again with
Mm-hmm.
Orpheus Reborn. And when that group fragmented, I stayed with Stephen, and the two of us put together a duo called Stephen and the Snake.
Right, which has a few albums out now.
Which has some stuff out now, yes. And we jointly run an open mic in South Weymouth every Saturday at the New England Wildlife Center. It's called the Catbird Cafe. Steve hosts it, I run the board. We've been doing that for 13 years.
Wow.
And then I decided that I wanted to do more than just the Catbird. There would be life beyond the Catbird.
Yeah.
So I started going to other open mics as I had time. And when I finally retired, I started doing it all the time. And that's what I do now. I cover most of Massachusetts, southern New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and actually a fair chunk of Connecticut as well.
Yeah.
Once in a while I get into Maine, but not often.
Yeah, it's not as much opportunity to play over there.
Well, there is, but the good ones are farther up.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to go somewhere and stay over in a hotel, to play an open mic.
Right.
So I try to do stuff that's within a radius of, say, 120 miles.
Right.
And that's enough. I can still go home at night.
You can. And it's drivable and reasonable.
I put roughly 660 miles a week on my car.
Hope you have a good car.
Yeah, I do.
So I wanted to go back. You said something interesting to me the other day, that you actually, with Orpheus, got the opportunity to open for a bunch of groups.
Oh, yeah. The first gig we had, the first major gig we had as Orpheus, MGM decided we better do some gigs before they, really sprung us on the world.
Right.
And we played in Detroit at a little hole-in-the-wall club called the Chessmate. At one time, it was a hotbed in Detroit.
Okay.
The Blues Magoos were their house band.
Mm-hmm.
And both Joni Mitchell and Tom Rush and a whole raft of others played there. In fact, I'm not quite sure of the story because I've heard many different versions, but Tom Rush was playing there when Joni Mitchell happened to be in town solo without her husband.
Okay.
And as I said, there are various versions of the story, but Tom Rush heard Joni Mitchell do the circle game and Urge for Going at the Chessmate. Loved them and recorded them. And that really kicked off Joni Mitchell.
Yeah, she was great. Is great.
Yeah. But anyway, after the Detroit gig, we were booked in Chicago and in Philadelphia. And we're going to have our official debut at the Bitter End in Greenwich Village.
Right.
But after the Detroit gig, we actually, fortuitously got a gig out at Brandeis, opening for the first American performance of Cream.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool. Got to know. I didn't get to know him that well. Harry got to know Eric Clapton quite well.
That's nice. Good guy.
According to Harry,
Yeah.
I had the chance to buy his first guitar for $100. He had a Dan Electro, and the early Dan Electros were real garbage. They were made by General Electric, and the body was Bakelite, and they used these lipstick pickups, which they're still using today in the reissues. But we were in New York and we got friendly with their roadie, Cream's roadie.
Yeah.
And we were headed off down to Philadelphia to do a TV show. And this guy hitched a ride along with us just to have something to do during the day. And he got talking. He said, Eric Clapton wants to sell his first guitar. It's a Dan Electro. He needs the money. He can have it for $100. And I said, why the hell would I want a Dan Electro for $100? They're pieces of crap. So I didn't buy it.
Yeah, and you're kicking yourself today.
Indeed. That would have been worth an absolute fortune with the right provenance.
Right.
He would have had to sign there. This was mine and so on. But yeah. And we opened for a whole raft of others. We opened for Janis Joplin out in Tanglewood in the Berkshires. We opened for Led Zeppelin, Jeff Beck in Central Park. We did several gigs with The Who, got to ride on their tour bus.
Right.
We got quite friendly with them. And there were many, many others. The Rascals, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I can't remember them all. I was going to look them up and write them down before I came, and I forgot.
Oh, well. Yeah, but you said you got to know some of them pretty well.
Well, The Who we got to know fairly well, yeah.
Yeah, so what was that like?
Oh, they were good guys. This was in their early days when Keith Moon was still alive.
Mm-hmm.
And Keith was a trip. We went to a party over at their suite in the Hotel Gorham in New York, and he came over to me and says, "Psst, Snake, come with me." So I went along down the hall to his bedroom. He pulled out a steamer trunk from under his bed, opened it up, and it was chock-a-block full to the brim of porno magazines.
Okay.
Me wife likes this stuff, he says. I said, yeah, right.
His wife likes... Okay.
We were playing with them down at Constitution Hall in D.C. And I was down in the bowels. There were some fans there. And I was talking to a couple of girls, and Keith used to scuttle, kind of, And he was in the shadows scuttling around. He came out and he leaped up on my back and gave me this big slobbering kiss on my cheek, leaped down again and went scuttling back into the shadows. These girls were totally freaked. That was Keith Moon. I said, yeah, he's a little weird.
Well, that is a little weird, I would say. Yeah. Did the girls go find him later?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, let's pick up this topic, but usually take a break here in the middle for a few minutes. I'm just going to mention again that we have a lot of stuff going on at the Hearing Room. Please check out our website, hearingroom.net. And as I said earlier, we've got Tuesday open mic, Wednesdays Let's Have Words, which is spoken word, Thursday is the Jam, and then we have a variety of events on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Please check out the website to see what that is. Next week on the podcast, we're going to have Jane Fallon. She's going to come and have a discussion with us. She's a very talented songwriter and has a lot to offer us and advice and information about that. She also writes books. Currently, I'm reading one of them. Very good story, and we'll tell you more about that next week. And I also want to mention University Music. Once more, University Music is Marlene and Brian Buckley. And Marlene and Brian Buckley are very nice people who run University Music at 1717 Middlesex Street. That's in Lowell. And the phone number is 978-453-6488. That's universitymusiclowell.com. They have instrument sales, service and repairs, music lessons, rentals, sheet music and accessories. And they're open 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. Check the website for more information on the hours. And that's about it. So let's get back to talking with Snake. So, Snake, how about another... you got more to talk about?
In conjunction with what you just said, I mentioned before I like to do songs by local people if I can find, ones that speak to me.
Okay.
And this is one by Jane Fallon.
Oh, great.
I guess that I could, if so inclined, pick up the pieces of my peace of mind, sweep up the crumbs that you left behind, if it mattered to me. And I guess if I tried, maybe I could understand what it was that was misunderstood, sort out the bad that came from the good, if it mattered to me. And I won, yes I won, yes I won, yes I wonder what matters to you now that we're through. What's your priority now that you're free? Does it matter to you that you matter to me? And I guess that I could give it a try, look all my yesterdays straight in the eye, discover why nothing hurts more than a lie, if it mattered to me. And I guess that I might eventually spend hours and hours in therapy to find out why you and I weren't meant to be, if it mattered to me. And I won, yes I won, yes I won, yes I wonder what matters to you now that we're through. What's your priority now that you're free? Does it matter to you that you matter to me? And I guess that I could deny all the fears, put on a brave face and be of good cheer, not sit in the corner and cry in my beer, if it mattered to me. I suppose I could try to forget all the hurt, leave it behind, learn how to flirt with that girl in the bar in her short mini skirt, if it mattered to me. And I won you so... wrong line. Oh, what is the matter with me? That it matters as much, and my heart is in tatters at the thought of your touch. My whole world, it shatters when matters as such as this matter to me. And I won, yes, I won, yes, I won, yes, I wonder what matters to you now that we're through. What's your priority now that you're free? Does it matter to you that you matter to me? Does it matter to you that you still matter to me?
I like that.
Apropos of your bringing Jane Fallon in next week for the podcast, I mentioned before that I like to do songs by local folks or people that I know. And this is a song by Jane Fallon. She wrote it in 2006, one of her many award-winning songs. First time I heard it, I said, boy, I got to learn that one. I guess that I could, if so inclined, pick up the pieces of my peace of mind, sweep up the crumbs that you left behind, if it mattered to me. And I guess if I tried, maybe I could understand what it was that was misunderstood. Apropos of your mentioning that Jane Fallon was going to be on your podcast next week, I mentioned before that I like to do songs by local singer-songwriters or folks that I know. And this is a song by Jane Fallon. She wrote it in 2006. It's one of her many award-winning songs. First time I heard it, I said, boy, I got to learn that one. I guess that I could, if so inclined, pick up the pieces of my peace of mind, sweep up the crumbs that you left behind, if it mattered to me. And I guess that I tried, maybe I could understand what it was that was misunderstood, sort out the bad that came from the good, if it mattered to me. And I won, yes, I won, yes, I won, yes, I wonder what matters to you now that we're through. What's your priority now that you're free? Does it matter to you that you matter to me? And I guess that I could give it a try, look all my yesterdays straight in the eye, discover why nothing hurts more than a lie, if it mattered to me. And I guess that I might eventually spend hours and hours in therapy to find out why you and I weren't meant to be. If it mattered to me, and I won, yes I won, yes I won, yes I wonder what matters to you. Now that we're through, what's your priority? Now that you're free, does it matter to you that you matter to me? And I guess that I could deny all the fear, put on a brave face and be of good cheer, not sit in the corner and cry in my beer. If it mattered to me, I suppose I could try to forget all the hurt, leave it behind, learn how to flirt with that girl at the bar in her short mini skirt. If it mattered to me, oh, what is the matter with me that it matters so much? And my heart is in tatters at the thought of your touch. My whole world it shatters when matters as such as this matter to me. And I won, yes I won, yes I won, yes I wonder what matters to you. Now that we're through, what's your priority? Now that you're free, does it matter to you that you matter to me? Does it matter to you that you still matter to me?
That's great.
That's a great song.
So that's something we can look forward to for next week. We can hear Jane do some more like that. It's great that you cover local artists, because I think it's kind of an honor that people don't get when they're just, out playing, that some other musician would think the song was good enough to cover. So I think it's great that you do that.
Oh, I love doing that. In fact, I'm going to do another one right now.
Okay. By who?
Rick Drost.
I'm not surprised. Rick is a great songwriter. He's been around the hearing room quite a lot. And let's hear it. Which one is this?
This is Still Point. Yeah, Rick's from Cambridge. I do a couple of his songs, and a lot more I want to do. And I'm having a brain freeze.
Okay, well, while your brain freezes, maybe we'll mention that you can check out the Hearing Room's website at hearingroom.net. Get that in your brain so you can always find out what's going on around here. Also, while this podcast is on, you could be at the Blues Jam at the Hearing Room, which is once a month as well. So please check that out, hearingroom.net. And we're here talking with Snake. Eric Gulliksen is his given name, and he's going to play Rick Drost.
If I can remember it.
Yeah.
I can't remember how it starts.
Well, can cut some of this out.
Yeah.
Do you have it to look up, or
No, I don't.
is it online?
Probably. If I can just think of the first line. I got it. Time now, time beckoning, time out of memory, glimpses of dreams not yet dead. Reborn romance, second chances past reckoning. The future now is repaired. Here at the high mark, where all waters rise, before they start falling away. Widen the moment in front of your eyes. You can dance through all time in a day. Lamb in the oven and cinnamon ginger, songs from your grandmother's heart. Easter time, family gathers for dinner. Take your place till they're ready to start. Early this morning, out under the apple tree, falls drops a dapple in sun. Cidery air up to blossoms cerulean. Grandfather's blessings begun. It's a still point where you long to stay, but the world turns and it slips away. Gone now the apple tree, long gone the family, raised in the home that they built in this place. You ride to the strains of a loopy calliope, reaching for brass rings they no longer make. but you're finding apple trees everywhere now. The forest in new fallen snow. Gulliver Beach Cliff towers in Tuscany. Cradle them and let them go. In the windlessness of the canyon floor, breathe the sky down in and again before each dip of the paddle, each stroke of the pen, as God writes your name in his hand. That's my favorite song of all time. That lyric is exquisite.
Yeah, Rick's a very interesting writer. He writes kind of long, complex melodies.
Oh, yeah. And he invents tunings.
Does he?
He'll think of what he wants it to sound like in his head, and he'll invent a tuning so he can play it.
Wow.
That's beyond me.
Yeah, well, I haven't asked Rick on the podcast yet. I slipped my mind. I think we should schedule that for a future one. But I wanted to ask you also about how you got into music in general when you were a kid. Like, what brought you to it?
Well, I like to listen. So I listen to the radio all the time. Mm-hmm. And of course, this was pretty early on. It was in the early 50s. And by the time rock and roll hit the scene, which was in 55 and 56, I was really, really into listening. We had a summer place in New Jersey. We go down there for a couple of weeks every year.
Right.
And there was a station out of Newark, New Jersey, WNJR. It was a black station. Mm-hmm. And they played black rhythm and blues. And I heard that and I said, wow, that is really something. This white bread stuff, the crew cuts and the diamonds and stuff, forget that stuff. This is really something. They put on a show in Paterson, New Jersey, with a whole raft of artists. Sam Cooke and the Bobettes and Illinois Jackettes Orchestra and Little Joe and the Thrillers and a whole raft of artists. I got my dad to take me. I was 15. So that would have been 1957, I guess. And we were about the only white folks in the audience. Mm-hmm. But Screamin' Jay Hawkins, man, in his red tuxedo and his tomahawk dancing around the mic. And then Chuck Berry. And when Chuck Berry came out, I said, I got to learn how to play guitar. So that's what got me into it.
Yeah.
One of my real thrills was doing a TV show with Chuck Berry later on.
Boy, it's pretty hard to imitate Screamin' Jay Hawkins, though.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah, he's something. Chuck Berry, played rock and roll, and it was awesome. But Screamin' Jay Hawkins, I've seen videos where he's just totally off the wall.
Oh, yeah, he was that.
But that's great. I can see why you'd get into music based on those guys. What what else do you have in your stories about the Who and stuff like that, or early rock and roll, or 70s anyway?
Nothing comes to mind at the moment.
Right.
Well, there are a few stories, but they would shatter some people's illusions. So
Okay, so we'll.
I'm going to skip those.
Well, let's talk about. I guess you've been playing, what, about 12 years or 15 years since your retirement from.
No, I retired at 73, which was only 4 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So I've been doing, every night since then.
But you've been playing with Stephen
Since 2004.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, and you've got how many albums with him?
Well, we have one album called Virtually Indestructible. And then we have several cuts on another album by a coalition of Massachusetts musicians called Musicians for the Greater Good. And these are protest songs.
Mm-hmm.
And we have several cuts on that.
So why don't you put a plug in for your protest song CD? I know you are selling copies wherever you go.
Yes, I carry some with me. I have them even with me as we speak. There's 10 songs on it, some really good stuff by some very, very good artists in addition to us. Market research has shown that in many cases, if you give away a CD, some folks will say, thank you very much, put it in their desk drawer or their glove compartment,
Mm-hmm.
and not play it because their value perception is, well, I got it for free. I don't know if it's any good or not, but, I'm not really concerned. So we decided that we would sell them for $1 a piece. None of us are going to make any money on this deal. Stephen and I invested in the project, Steve more so than me. And we know we're not going to get the money back. We don't care. The idea is to get the songs played and get this album played.
So where can people get a copy if they want one?
Come and see me.
Okay.
Wherever I'm playing, I'll have them in my pocket for $1, no more, no less.
And if you want to know where Snake's playing, you have to friend him on Facebook, and he'll list it every day. So
Every day for the next, and I plug the next 5 days worth of appearances so you can make plans.
Yeah, and actually, if you email the Hearing Room, email me, Aaron at mushroommusicians.com, let me know you're looking for one. I'll make sure I can let Snake know. So, but it's a pretty good project. Who benefits? Did you do it as a benefit at all, or just?
No, it's just to try to make people aware of these social justice issues. It's songs for social justice. We're all activists for social justice, and we want to make people aware of the problems that exist in today's society. Get them to think about them, and hopefully motivate them to do something about them.
Well, on the album you did one of my favorite recordings or performances you do, which is Strange Fruit. Do you have that prepared to do today?
I could do that.
Yeah. And, the intro you do I like particularly, so be sure to...
Yeah, Strange Fruit was... started its life as a poem in 1937. It was written by a guy named Abel Mirapole. He was from Holyoke. And interestingly enough, he adopted the children of Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, who in 1951 were executed for the crime of conspiring to sell the United States atomic secrets to Russia. And now here we are
Right.
with the president and the Senate selling the whole country to Russia. And we're going to give the atomic secrets to Saudi Arabia. I mean, what lunacy is this? But anyhow, I digress. Scholars have said that this may be the most important song of the 20th century, not because it was a big hit, but because of its message. It talks about the lynchings that went on in the Deep South, particularly in the 20s and 30s, when 4,000 or so people were lynched. Mostly black, not all. You know, it's a very, very terrible period in our history. We only know about 4,000 people or so because those were documented. They used to have picnics, you know, bring the kids, Lily Bell, we gonna have a lynching. And they'd take pictures, photographs of these bodies dangling from the trees, print them on postcards and sell them in the general store. Unbelievable. So anyway, the song addresses that. It started as a poem in 37 and 39. Abel Meeropol, under the name of Lewis Allen, teamed up with a couple of other folks and they set the poem to music. There are a few versions. Josh White did one. Nina Simone had one in 1965 that was a fair-sized hit. But not many people really have done it. I think they're afraid of it. The iconic version was done by Billie Holiday in 1939. Southern trees bear a strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit dangling from the poplar trees. Pastoral scene of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth, scent of magnolias clean and fresh, the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rot, for the trees to drop. This is a strange and bitter crop. southern trees bear a strange fruit. Blood on the leaves and blood at the root. Bodies swinging in the southern breeze. Strange fruit dangling from the cypress tree. Thanks. You know, it's too bad that that song has to be sung again, but it started again, the lynchings. And the original lyric was black bodies swinging. Mm-hmm. I took the word black out because today you don't have to be black to be a victim. Just be poor or the wrong ethnicity or the wrong gender identity or just by being a woman. Mm-hmm. Wrong religion, wrong sect of evangelical Christianity can get you lynched. It's got to stop.
Yeah. You've done a lot of stuff about social justice, different songs, and the album's really great. I've listened to it a bunch of times.
Thanks.
And all very talented people on it. What's another social justice song, since we're on that topic? Do you have one?
Yeah, I do. This one, again, it's by somebody local. I discovered it at an open mic out in East Hampton. It was written by a guy named Bob Chabot. The minute I heard it, I said, boy, there's another one I've got to learn.
Yeah, when you know so many talented people, there's no limit to the amount of songs you end up having in your back pocket.
Yeah, you're right. But this thing is fantastic. Talks about apathy and hypocrisy, which is why a couple of the major reasons that we are where we are today. Did you see Mrs. Johnson? Did you see? What did she see? Another brain freeze.
Yeah, I saw Mrs. Johnson. She was down the street.
Ah, okay, I got it. Did you see Mrs. Johnson? Did you see? Were you watching when in protest a black man took a knee? Did you let the great deceiver tell you what your thoughts should be? Did you see Mrs. Johnson? Did you see? Did you care, Mrs. Johnson? Did you care? When those kids died in their classrooms, did you send your thoughts and prayers? Did you talk about amendments while the town lay in despair? Did you care, Mrs. Johnson? Did you care? Did you know, Mrs. Johnson, did you know? The earth is getting warmer. It started now to show. And our children and grandchildren will have nowhere they can go. Did you know, Mrs. Johnson? Did you know? Did you hear, Mrs. Johnson? Did you hear? Kids are dying at the border, separated and in fear. Do you ever think about them? Is that not your kind of tear? Did you hear, Mrs. Johnson? Did you hear? Did you fall, Mrs. Johnson? Did you fall? Did you drop down to your knees and beg forgiveness for it all? Did you ever stop to ask yourself, would Jesus build a wall? Did you fall, Mrs. Johnson? Did you fall? Thanks.
All right, that was great. So we're getting close to the end here, and I think we should lift people up a bit. And another one you do that is one of my favorites is Ménage à Moi.
I could do that, yeah.
Do you? I forget who wrote this. Could you tell us?
This was written by a friend of mine. Actually, he's a Facebook friend. He was a good friend of Jack McKenna's. I've never actually met him, but we've communicated quite a bit on Facebook. His name is Russell B. Mason. Very talented guy. Used to live in New York, and he wrote several off-Broadway musicals. He now lives in Saipan. It's my favorite song for the dumped. That's a genre, you know. Songs for the dumped.
Okay.
And once upon a time, Russ was one of the world's truly great dumpies, as opposed to dumpers. Dumpy being the one who gets dumped.
Yes.
Now, some people, when they get dumped, they get drunk, or they take to using drugs, or they shoot themselves, or they shoot their ex, or they drive a car into a bridge, or whatever. They become very self-destructive.
Mm-hmm.
Some others don't. They have a much more pragmatic view of what to do. And old Russ had a pretty pragmatic view. And this is what he said he would do. Wrote this in 1989, I think. My girlfriend, she walked out on me. It's over now. It's plain to see. Now I'm alone. I guess I'll go home. But of all the lovers that I have had, she wasn't the best, so I'm not too sad. And I think, honestly, the best I ever had was me. Tonight I'll sip some champagne, have a small quiche Lorraine, soft music and a little candlelight. Yes, I'll have a ménage à moi tonight. I'll take a hot bath, quietly laugh at the way I used to be so bourgeois. Yes, I'll have a ménage à moi ce soir. There is no need for any other when you discover that you're the lover you've been long anticipating. And it certainly isn't queer to say to that face in the mirror, my God, I find you so fascinating. Now there's no need to fake it or say, did you make it? Knowing everything's gonna turn out just right. Yes, I'll have a ménage à moi tonight. Ba-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da. Yes, I'll have a ménage à moi tonight. Ba-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da. Yes, I'll have a ménage à moi tonight. There is no need for any other when you discover that you're the lover you've been long anticipating. And it certainly isn't queer to say to that face in the mirror, My God, I find you so stimulating. Now there's no need to fake it or say, did you make it? Knowing everything's gonna turn out just right. Yes, I've a ménage à moi tonight. Turn out the light, my darling. Yes, I'll have a ménage à moi. Oh yes, I'll have a ménage à moi. Do you believe I'm gonna have a ménage à moi tonight?
I like that one. So that actually, for those of you who were not able to see Snake in person, he kisses his hand at the end there, or his arm, all the way up. And I think that's the best technique when you do it live. It's always brings down the house. Everyone loves that. I think that's a great song.
That's sort of, people say that's my signature song. I can't understand why.
Well, it's a signature.
Yeah.
I'd say you have several. But you know, it's amazing that you do all this traveling around, and you know, you're able to be part of this community of musicians, and just it's fantastic the way that you do that constantly.
Well, you know, there are many communities, open mic communities.
Mm-hmm.
The Hearing Room is one example. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it draws on people from some other communities as well. But I'm in a dozen of these communities because I go to them, you know, these open mics all over the place and meet different folks. It's really great.
Yeah, it's like basically you're touring. You're just doing it locally.
Yeah, you might say that.
And
not getting paid.
Well, you know, it's the love of it, I guess. That's what keeps you going. So
keeps me on the sunny side of the grass, as they say.
That's right, and we all want to be there. So do you have any parting words for any musicians who are listening? That, I mean, you've had a lot of experience in your musical history. What would you say to people who are young and starting out?
If it's your passion, do it. Don't do it thinking you're going to get rich. Don't, unless you're just doing it to make money, don't try to copy the records. You know, there are, you know, the pickup joints where folks really want to hear the covers done like they were on the record.
Right.
But really, if you want to hear a song that's done like it was done on the record, play the record.
Yeah.
You know, make the songs your own. Establish your own identity. And stick to it. Don't let anybody discourage you. If you want to write, remember that the world has probably 1 billion mediocre songs in it. Mm-hmm. Try not to contribute to that.
Well,
mass.
that's good advice.
Make sure your stuff is good. You know, one thing about protest songs and many religious songs, particularly Christian songs, the songwriters, in many cases, are more interested in getting their message out than they are in making a good song. Mm-hmm. So, you know, they have their message, and the song really isn't very good. But they think, well, it's got my message out there. I'm getting my message out. Well, if the song isn't very good, nobody's going to listen to your message.
Right.
So make sure the songs are good if you want to get your message out there.
Yeah, good advice. So it's been great having you on the show.
It's certainly been my pleasure.
And I love that you keep coming to stuff at the Hearing Room and elsewhere. And if you want to see Snake, don't have to look too far. Just go to an open mic. And I'd say about a 50% chance he's probably going to show up.
Well, maybe not quite that
Maybe
much,
not 50%, but but thank you very much for joining us. And in the meantime, we have again a lot of stuff going on at the Hearing Room, and we have our website at hearingroom.net. So please go there, check it out. And there's a lot going on all over the community, so please be aware of that so that you can go and check out any open mic, just like Snake. We also have University Music sponsoring us, so I wanted to mention that again. University Music is in Lowell at universitymusiclowell.com. You can check out all the details. 1717 Middlesex Street, and that's about it. So I'm going to sign off. As I said again, Jane Fallon will be on next week. And have a great week otherwise, and tune in again on Monday at 7.
If you start with a dream and share it with someone